Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Bain, and I'm the Executive Director for the Northwest Tennessee Workforce Board. I have with me Connie Stewart, who is the Executive Director for Workforce Services at Dyersburg State Community College. And we greatly appreciate you taking the time to be with us today to learn more about the services that we have available for students through the American Job Centers. To give you a little bit of background information on our programs, all of our services are funded through the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act of 2014, or WIOA. These programs are administered through the U.S. Department of Labor, and funding is then distributed to each state workforce board. In Tennessee, that's through the Department of Labor and Workforce Development, and they then distribute funds across 9 local workforce development areas. The local elected officials or county mayors or executives for each area serve as the grant recipient, but they can select an entity to receive the funds and manage the programs for them. In our area, that entity has been selected as the Northwest Tennessee Workforce Board, so we oversee the programs in the 9 Northwest counties. We also contract with 2 entities to provide direct services to participants. We have Mid-Cumberland Human Resource Agency serving as our one-stop operator, and Dyersburg State Community College serves as our contracted career service provider for the Title I adult, dislocated worker, and youth programs. Through the American Job Centers, we also have several other partner programs, which include adult education, Wagner-Pizer, vocational rehabilitation, temporary assistance for needy families or Families First, and many more. We do have an American Job Center in each of our 9 counties. You can see all their contact information there and their phone numbers. At the bottom, you'll also see our website, our Facebook page, and our Twitter page. And if you have not liked or followed our pages, we would appreciate it if you do so. We post regular job openings as well as program updates there, so it's a good place to stay informed of what we have going on. Today, we would like to specifically talk more about the Title I youth services. As I mentioned, we contract with Dyersburg State Community College to administer these services through the American Job Centers. This program in particular targets teens and young adults between the ages of 16 and 24, with a focus on those who need assistance to further their education to successfully enter the workforce and who have 1 or more barriers to success. And I'm going to turn it over to Connie to go into those details.
Dyersburg State Community College has been contracted as the career service provider. Our focus for the youth program is on career pathways and career exploration. The main goal of the youth program is to assist youth and young adults get on a career path so they can successfully enter the workforce or post-secondary education. This slide focuses on some of the elements of our youth program. I'm going to talk about most of them later, but I do want to touch on a couple. The follow-up program, we provide follow-up services for 1 year after they complete post-secondary training or a work experience. So we have some incentives built in that if the young adult is in post-secondary or they're working, they can be paid $100 per quarter for working. So that's pretty exciting for the young adults. Another one I wanted to focus on is the career exploration and education services. So I know that many of you in the school system have access to some career exploration assessments. We have one in particular called U Science, and it's about a 2-hour assessment that really helps the young person. It's sort of similar to like an IQ test in a way. So they take this assessment, and it's about 2 hours, and it will help them really focus on what are their strengths as far as employment's concerned. What careers would they be good at? And it's a really, really good assessment. But like I said, it's 2 hours. So a youth has to be pretty invested in it to take it. And then labor market information, we look at all the demand occupations in our local area, because we often find that young people, want to say they want a career. We get a lot that want to do something like radiography or whatever. And in our area, it's got a really limited demand. So we want to help the young person focus on what's in demand in our area, what they can get a job in, because we don't want them to go to school for a couple years and find out when they get done that they are not employable. The paid work experience or work-based learning, Dyersburg State is actually the employer, and we provide workers compensation. So we employ them. We find a work site for them based on their career goals. So for example, say they want to be a nurse. We would try and find a work site in a hospital setting, a nursing home setting, somewhere like that. We would go to the employer. We would have them sign a work site agreement saying that they're going to allow the young person to work there. We let them know that we're going to pay all of their benefits. They just sign off on a timesheet. And if the youth, we hope never, but in the event that something happens and they get injured on the work site, we cover the workman's comp insurance. So it's kind of a win-win for us. The young person has the ability to gain some job skills, and the employer has free labor. All the students can work anywhere from, if they want to work 10 hours a week, that's fine. They can work part-time, or they can work full-time hours. The work experience lasts for 6 months, and we pay a minimum of $8 an hour, or the typical wage for that position. Our post-secondary scholarships, students can receive scholarships in the amount of $4,000 per year based on their unmet need. So say tuition is about $5,000 a year, and they get lottery and Pell. All of those state and federal aid is subtracted first, and then we pay the unmet need. We pay for tuition, books, uniforms, supplies, whatever they need, and is on their cost sheet for the school. Most of our students go to a TCAT, or some of them go to some private providers. We've got truck driving that we pay for, or some of them go to a dental assistant school in Franklin, things like that. We pay the last 2 years at a university, and we also fund AAS programs at the community college. So in fact, a young person could go to a community college, receive Tennessee Promise, then transfer to the university, and we would pick up the last 2 years. So in a sense, some of those students can nearly go to school for free. We have a supportive service program, and the biggest supportive service that we have is a gas card. So we often find that young people do not have funding to get to and from school. They might can get their school paid for, but getting there is a problem. So we have a gas card where we pay 15 cents a mile to help them get to and from school. Another one of the supportive services is the National Career Readiness Certificate testing. We'll pay for that test if they're enrolled with us in the program. And we also have some incentives around that. If a young person takes the National Career Readiness exam and they pass and earn their certificate, they can get a $25 incentive. We also help with, a lot of these young people when they go to a work site, if they wanted to go to a nursing home, or say they wanted to work in the school system, they would probably have to have a background check, and we would pay for that background check. If they needed clothes for the work site, a special uniform, or if they were in an office setting and need office clothes, we would provide funding for that. Some of them don't have their driver's license for the I-9, so we can help them get an ID or a driver's license, different things like that. We want to try to meet all of their needs so that they can successfully enter the workforce. Okay, in the very first slide, we talked about some of the program elements, and those were the ones that we provide at Dyersburg State. Some of the other elements we provide via referral. So Adult Ed is one of our partners, and they're in many of our American Job Centers. And so what we do is if we had a young person who came in that did not graduate from high school, or maybe they went to Gateway or somewhere like that and they needed to obtain a high school diploma, we would refer them to adult education. And then we have incentives built in to help as the youth progresses through classes and they get ready to take the exam and then they pass the exam. We have, I think they can earn, I want to say about $500 to get through that when they pass their exam. So we do try to incentivize them. Alternative school dropout recovery services are offered through the school system. There is an MOU with Carey Counseling in case they have substance abuse and they need counseling services. And then the small business development centers at Dyersburg State and UTM will meet with any of the youth if they're interested in starting their own small business. Okay, so how are our young people eligible? All in-school youth must be low income. So how do we determine that they're low income? If they live in Lake County, the entire county is automatically considered low income because they're a high poverty area. So regardless of how much money the family makes, any youth from Lake County will automatically be eligible as low income. The easiest way for us is if they're receiving free or reduced lunch through the school system, but that must be based on their own individual income. If the county allows for every student, regardless of income, to be eligible for free or reduced lunch, we can't use that. If they're receiving any kind of state or public assistance like SNAP or TANF, that will make them automatically eligible. Finally, if we can't make them eligible on free or reduced lunch, or they're not receiving public assistance, we do have to look at total family income over the past 6 months. If we have a student who has a disability that's going to school and you all have an IEP, we can use that as a disability, and that considers them eligible based on their own income. So if they're not working or haven't worked in the past 6 months, they're automatically going to meet that criteria. They also must have one or more barriers to employment. Okay, we're looking for young adults, like I said, who are low income and basic skills deficient. So that would mean that they're functioning below a 9th grade level in math, reading, or language, according to any kind of state standardized test. If they've been in foster care, aged out of foster care, or were in foster care for 6 months, reached the age of 16 and were adopted or placed in kinship care. If they have any juvenile justice involvement other than any kind of traffic violation, they're eligible. If they're pregnant or a parent, either custodial or non-custodial, they would meet that barrier. They can be homeless, and I think that we try to focus as much as we can. I know that we don't have a tremendous homeless population in our area, but I think as educators, you know that some of these kids have an unstable situation at home, and they may be staying at a friend's or staying at an aunt and kind of moving from place to place. We would consider that young person homeless. If they're an English language learner, or they live in a home where English is not the predominant language in the home, we can make them eligible based on that. So this is the criteria for all young people in high school. They would have to be low income and meet one of these criteria. So this is the criteria while they're in high school. So say you've got a young person who really could use our services and they want to participate in the work experience program, but they're not going to meet one of this criteria. If we wait until they have met their graduation requirements and they graduate, the day after graduation, we can enroll them. If they're still low income, they're going to have to be low income, but we have a very long list of what we call requires additional assistance that has a tremendous amount of criteria that I think most young people would meet one of those criteria. Then we can make them eligible at that point. So this is only the criteria for when they're in high school, but as soon as they graduate, the criteria becomes less restrictive.
Thanks, Connie. We're going to go over now how schools can work with Connie and her staff, as well as the Northwest Tennessee Workforce Board staff, to have their students participate in these services. The first thing that we hope you all will do is enter into an agreement for access to services with the Northwest Tennessee Workforce Board. And what this asks of you all is to identify a school staff person to serve as the school's ambassador. This person would receive additional training on all of these services and how to best connect students with them. And they would serve as the point of contact for both students and Workforce Board and Dyersburg State American Job Center staff. That way we are hopefully going to connect with the students that Connie mentioned who are low income and have those barriers, who are most in need of our services. We will also provide some informational materials that you can display in the school libraries or other appropriate settings. And we would ask that this person, help serve as that liaison, that if somebody comes into the library or comes into the office where those materials are, this school ambassador would help that person understand a little bit more about that information and that program, but then they could connect that student with the American Job Center staff who could go over it in more detail and let them know what they need to do to move forward with receiving those services. The training for the school ambassadors and any other school staff that would be interested is going to be provided virtually. We would ask that you consider librarians, counselors, CTE directors, work-based learning coordinators, or any other staff that you feel would be appropriate to participate in the training. We will go over the dates and the times in just a minute, but that will be available after the live session. We'll have a recording so that anyone who's not able to attend the live session will be able to view that after the fact. During that training, we'll go over, as I mentioned, more in detail some of the services and the eligibility criteria and just kind of some of the processes that we can go through to best connect to your students. Some of those ways that we would go over in more detail during the training that we can connect with the students is by offering information sessions and or hiring events and job fairs and career fairs for the students. We can do this either in person as feasible, or this can be a virtual event, or it can be a combination of the two. We do have access to Premier Virtual, a job fair platform that can be used for career fairs and other things like that, as well as Zoom and different things that we can meet with students virtually. We're happy to have group meetings with students or one-on-one meetings with students, and the American Job Center can provide all the information the students need to know as far as what they need to do to make sure they're eligible and how to best participate in the program. And the hiring events are really intended to connect those students who are eligible with employers who have agreed to serve as work sites. So this is an example of an event we had last summer in Benton County. We had 12 employers participating, representing 29 job openings, and 23 students attended. So through this event, employers and job seekers were doing on-site interviews and were kind of able to match up their interests and their compatibility to place students into full-time, up to full-time work experience positions for the summer, and beyond that if they wanted to work past that. Something that some of you may be familiar with that we do every year are also manufacturing days. These are the numbers from our last in-person events in 2019, where we normally have students go on site to tour an employer and see firsthand what those jobs look like. If they're not able to tour in person, sometimes an employer will come in and speak with the students, but unfortunately we weren't able to do in-person events last year. So we did a recording of an employer panel where we had several employers across different counties speak as to what positions they have available, what type of career paths are available, and what that kind of looks like in each individual setting. And that video is available on our website and our YouTube page, and schools are welcome to use that as often as they'd like. So our next steps, we will be sending out the agreement to access for services, and we ask that the signed copies be returned to me at that email address by February 15th. The training for the school staff and ambassadors is scheduled for February 16th and 17th. You do not have to attend both sessions, but we're going to offer 2 different times in case one time does not work for your staff. So those will be 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. each day. And as I mentioned, we will record those, so they'll be available afterwards. And then if your school would like to have information sessions for your students on the services that are available, or if you would like to work with us on a hiring event for students, we'll be glad to do that, anywhere between March 1st and the end of the year, whatever works best for your school. And our business services staff for the Northwest Tennessee Workforce Board, Lana Wood and Malia Evans, will be happy to work with you to select and find employers to participate in those events. If you have any questions, we would love to hear from you. You can see my contact information as well as Connie's contact information. And we, again, appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Thank you.